So he asked if he could come over and see the school, so he and his wife Diane came over to visit us, and they've done marvelous things for us so far. But I just want to give you a little background on who Mr. Solers is.
Oh.
He's the founding circle member of the David Solars Leadership Coaching and Consulting. He's also an actor. Were you a clown at one point?
Class clown.
Class clown at one point.
That's why I got to sit up here.
He's chairman of the board
See?
at Ironstone Farm. He is a certified coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell Team, and that's why we're here today. Mr. Solers, he's been a pioneer and practitioner of integrative medicine for over 25 years. Acupuncture.
Yes, sir.
He's okay, so he is a doctor. Okay, and he also has been on the leadership team of several successful business ventures. He is a meeting facilitator and coach for executives. I would be put in that executive class, thank you. And his patients say this about him. He is a leadership coach that happens to practice integrative medicine. So what we have today is yesterday, the John Maxwell Foundation kicked off YouthMax, which is dedicated to helping youth help themselves. So what these seminars are doing is it's giving the team members, the certified team members, an opportunity to serve the youth and youth organizations, as we are here at Notre Dame, and their communities by helping youth grow and develop to meet the challenges of today's life. So for those of you who were lucky enough to attend LeaderCast training at Merrimack College on Friday, hopefully today will be a continuation of that education in your leadership development. For those of you who were not able to attend that LeaderCast on Friday, hopefully this will be the start for you to develop your own leadership skills. And so please join me in welcoming Mr. David Solers.
Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And it's just great to be here. You know, I chose to be here. I wanted to be here. After I was speaking with Sister Mary Alice and Fred, I just saw the tremendous potential that this class has and the work that you're doing to make your lives achieve that peak performance. You're giving opportunities, and you want to take that opportunity and turn it into something, right? But you have to do that. You have to do that. They give you a platform to stand on, words and skills and things to use, but it's really your behavior that determines whether you'll be successful or not. And you know how I know that? Me too. You know, it's my behavior. We were just talking about the front row, and I certainly have a lot of experience in the front row secondarily. So my name begins with S, so in our school, S's sit in the back. Well, I had a lot to say about a lot of things when I was your age, so eventually they didn't like that, and eventually I got to sit in the front row too. So I was always moving from the back row to the front row in my high school years, and then it wasn't until I decided I was going to go to college. My parents didn't have the money to put me through college. I was the first person in our family to ever attempt to go to college. We had a 4-generation family business that most people were happy about. They were house painters, so they painted houses and businesses, and people were happy to do that. I was not. I felt like I needed to do something. I had to do something. I didn't feel like I quite fit into that because my eyes were always someplace else. My imagination was someplace else. My ambition was someplace else. Consequently, I fell off a lot of ladders, and I think they just said, get this guy out of here. So I decided I needed to go to college because I needed to have options and possibilities in my life, and I knew I could achieve that through education. But nobody in my family had ever gone to college. Nobody had ever done that. So I had to do it myself. Nobody ever paid for it. Nobody ever saved for it. Nobody ever thought it was possible. So I found out what I had to do, and I had to achieve certain grades, and I had to go after certain grants, and I had to get certain money, and I had to get certain loans, and I had to do all these things. It was a lot more complicated than I thought. But I decided when I was your age, right, sophomores, yes, that this is what I wanted to do. And so I talked to them and my parents, and they said they could do it. They could, but, you know, limited. And I said, fine, I'm going to do it myself. And I decided at that moment that I was going to do it myself. Now, I had some great teachers. I had some great people that helped me, but it eventually came down to I had to do it myself. I had to make sure that it happened myself. I had to make sure that I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. I had to take responsibility for my behavior, which I hadn't before. I had to do that. If I wanted to go where I thought I could be, if I wanted to see myself in the places that in my mind and in my heart I thought were possible. I thought they were possible, but they weren't possible until I made them happen with consistent behavior that gave me new habits that allowed me to have the outcome and performance that I thought of when I was your age. So I did all those things and I went to college. I paid for it myself. I wrote all the checks. I never skipped a class. And I sat in the first 2 rows all 4 years. I wrote the check myself. I felt the pain myself. Every time I wrote the check, I was like, no! And when my friends were saying, you know, yeah, Dave, it's a nice day, let's just skip class. I'm going, no, that's a $37 class. There's no way I'm skipping that class. I'm going. So I knew how much each class costs. I knew how much everything costs because I wrote the check. So I think we write our checks in life. I think we write our checks in life. You know, you're going to be the one to write your check. Money-wise, behavior-wise, personality-wise, you write the check. And then you'll show up because you feel the pain. You know, you studied all night, you show up for the test. Right? You worked every day here to have a certain peak performance. You will go for the job interview. You will go and do your best. You will perform at your highest potential so that you can have your desired outcome. Nobody's going to do that for you. I can tell you that. No one. And people will say you can't do it, and you have to decide you can. You have to decide, because nobody can decide that. What you feel inside is your potential, and that's why I'm here today, is to help you with that potential. That will determine your success in life. I've had plenty of experiences with this because there's 2 things that I came from. People who said, you can do it, I don't know how, good luck with that. I got a lot of that in my life. Oh, I'm sure you can do it. Good luck with that. I'm like, all right, okay, all right, that was helpful, sort of. And then the other thing is that I had a lot of people tell me I couldn't. A lot of people said, yeah, I could not do it. And so I had to decide early on what I wanted to do, and then I had to put my muscle, my mind, my effort. I got help along the way, because I'll tell you something. You want people to help you? Show up. You want people to be impressed with who you are? Show up. You show up. Because that will separate you from so many people out there in the world that don't show up, that are mailing it in, that are whatever. You show up, and they are going to be impressed, and they will start to help you. When they help you, you still have to do it. You must write your own check. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm 52 now. I've been writing checks since I was your age. I've been writing my own checks. So get used to it. It does not stop. Right? Nobody said it would be easy. They just said it would be worth it. And it is worth it. Fabulous life of my making. Wow. Wow. I love this guy. Wow. All right. So the idea is your potential. That's why I'm here. That's why I took the time to do this. Because it's your potential, right? You're in the seat that I was. Maybe you got people telling you can do it. Maybe you got people saying you can't do it. It doesn't really matter. You have to draw from what you think inside. This is your job, not anybody else's job. But that potential and how you feel about yourself is going to be the answer. So if you think you're here and you want to be here, how do you get that gap? Like, let's just say 1 to 10. This is what you feel your potential is, or the self-worth that you have. And you think that you're a 3 now. But possibly you could be an 8. Well, how do you do that? How do you make that work? How do you grow into this space? Because your self-esteem, the way that you think about yourself, your positive self-image, really does determine a lot. It determines how you think about yourself, how others think about you. It determines how you will think about others. It really determines all those little pieces. And you wouldn't know it, really, at first. You just walk in and say, well, nobody knows my secret. I think of myself as this particular way. No one will ever know. I was going out for my first job. This was my first job interview. Besides working for my family, which I did a lot of. So I did all that stuff. I baled hay, I detasseled corn. I grew up in Ohio, by the way. And so I did all that stuff until I said, gosh, I hate farm work. So what can I do? So then I started painting. Now that's a great profession, but then I said, gosh, I hate painting. So I was what they call a preparatory specialist. I filled nail holes and sanded walls. Yeah. So then, of course, I said, yeah, I said, gosh, I hate painting. So if you're going to hate something, you got to do something else. You can't just say, well, I hate this and I hate that. And you got to eventually find out, what do I like, and then put some muscle behind it. Well, I didn't have that much on the ball, but someone, and I don't even know who it is to this very day, I don't know who this was, called Human Rayburn, which was an upscale clothing store in our town, really the place to be, the place to shop, the coolest place to be, and only the coolest people worked there. Someone gave them my name and they called me and they offered me a job interview. To this day, I don't even know who that was. And I asked because I wanted to thank them. Yes, thank you. Possibly, right? I prayed constantly for guidance. And somebody asked me the other day, when do you pray? And I said, the phone is never off the hook. I pray constantly. I'm praying now that I say something that has relevance in your life. I pray that I say something that reaches you. I pray that what our interaction today helps both of us to further our life together. I pray all day long. So I wanted to thank them, and I never found out who there was. So I pedal my bicycle down there because my parents decided I should do this on my own. So I pedaled my bicycle down to Human Rayburn. Now these are people that have cars. These are people that look nice. I go in there in a pair of jeans because that's all I have. I go out there in a work shirt because that's all I have. I'm in my sort of old tennis shoes because that's all I have. So I'm walking into this place. I've never shopped there. I don't have enough money to shop there. I've seen it. People look nice. I noticed that, like, the trendy people always have clothes from this place, but I don't have anything from this place. So I'm walking in the door. I'm parking my bicycle, and I'm walking in the door. What do you think's going through my mind?
I'm scared.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not cool enough. I don't have enough money to be here. My clothes are wrong. My hair is wrong. Everything about me is wrong. I'm just wrong. And so I feel horrible. So in my mind, when I was painting on a ladder, I was thinking of myself as like a 10. I know I could do something with my life. I know I can make a contribution in life. Other than the painters, both sides of my family are ministers. So I grew up with ministry in my family a lot. So I knew that I could make a contribution. I knew that I could do something to affect people's lives. I felt it inside, but I just didn't know what that was. So how do I get to where I think I can be a 10 and I'm walking in this door, what, -2? Right? Like, here's the gap between what I think I can be and today how I'm thinking about. If I could put my hand under the floor, that's where I thought I was. But here's the secret, and here's what I learned early on. I did it anyway. That's actually the secret to my entire success. I know how to do almost nothing, but I do it anyway. See? Yeah? See? How about that? I do it anyway, right? They said, well, you need to speak in front of a group of youth. I don't do that every day. And I thought, I'll just do it anyway. I'll just do it anyway. People say that I'm immature. I must connect with them in some way. You know, I can bring myself down because I don't think I've matured at all in all these years. So we can connect. You guys are more mature than I am. Heck, I can tell that right away. I didn't even come close to your level of maturity when I was your age. Not even close. Remember, I'm the guy under the floor. Under the floor. So I walked into that place feeling horrible about myself. Terrible. And I walk in, and I meet the guys. I don't even know what happened. To this day, I can't remember. It was a blur. My heart was pounding. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Every time I talked to them, they would say, and Mr. Solers, you have this? And I'm like, yes, I do. And inside, I'm like, ah! I'm not good enough. My clothes are... I'm looking around. They're going, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had that. That would be great. No, that's women's clothes. No, that would be great. I wish I had... And everything was beautiful, and everybody was beautiful, and everything was amazing, and I'm inside going, ah! I have my bicycle outside. If I had nice clothes, they'd get caught in the chain. Remember, this was the 70s. We had bigger pants, wider pants. Yeah, I don't even want you to, there's no pictures of me in this presentation, by the way. Yeah, we'll do that later. So I go in and I do the interview. I do it anyway, right? I do the interview. I'm scared to death. My mind is screaming. My heart is pounding. And I do it anyway. Because there's another thing that I know about myself, and this is what my family taught me, is that I've got a great work ethic. I know how to work. I know how to work. If you've ever worked on a farm, you know how to work. Because work is connected with your food. You don't work, you don't eat. Right? You were a little light on the hay baling wagon this afternoon. That'd be one piece of chicken instead of two. Who noticed? We noticed. You don't work, you don't eat. So that kind of brings it home. So you learn how to work. You learn how to put it in gear. You learn how to make it happen. And so I knew that I could do that. I had that confidence that if somebody gave me a chance, I could make it happen. I didn't know what that chance was going to be, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. But I knew in my heart that if someone gave me a chance, I could do something with that chance until I figured out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. So I got into the coolest place in the world. My first 7 paychecks were to get clothes because I did not have the right clothes. So I had to buy the right clothes. So now inside, remember, I feel that I'm less than everybody else, right? I think I could be this, but I feel like I'm this. How do I close that gap? I met a woman in the back who was Mabel Johnson. Mabel Johnson was a seamstress. On my second day, she calls me in the back. Mabel is 1,000 years old. She's 1,000 years old. So I don't know, I was your age. I think she was 1,000 years old. So we go in the back and Mabel tells me, she said, young man, I started working here when I was 15 years old. And I'm like, that's like 980, man, that's old. So she says, there's simple rules here, and if you follow them, you'll do well. But if you don't, I will get you fired. I'm like, all right, thank you. That was nice. I will get you fired. Mabel says, she's this 1,000-year-old, seemingly nice woman. And she says in one sentence, do what I say or I will get you fired. I'm like, all right, well, that's a nice threat. Thank you, 1,000-year-old threat woman. So what I didn't know and what I would learn at that time is that I had learned to pay attention. I had learned to follow directions. I had learned to listen. I didn't know that those were important until I got into a job, but I had respect because I'd worked with my grandfather, my father, my brother, and some of those guys. So I had actually learned to be respectful and listen. I just didn't know that that was a skill set. I didn't know that was important. Turns out it is. So I listened to Mabel. There were a bunch of kids there. I was so intimidated by the other kids. These were the cool kids, the rich kids. They all had cars. Remember, I'm still in on my bicycle. And these are like the coolest kids in the world. They're the it kids. They're the cool kids, the rich kids. And then there's me, who's spending my entire paycheck on clothes because I don't have anything to wear. So how I think about them also too, because remember, when I go in there, I don't like them. Like right away, I don't like them. Because I think, well, they're rich and I'm not, and they've got everything and I don't, and they know this stuff and I don't. I don't like them. Now, of course, I don't know them, right? I've never met them. I'm prejudiced. I'm prejudiced. How about that? I'm the prejudiced one, as it turns out. So how I think about myself, subfloor, lowly, awful. That affected how I thought about them. I don't like them. I've never met them, but because I feel bad about myself, I don't like them because I think they've got whatever. So now, my feeling about myself is affecting how I think about them. And guess what? When you show up with an attitude, how do you think they're going to feel about you?
I don't like you.
Exactly. So we've never met, and already I don't like them and they don't like me. We've never spoken and we've never met, and yet that's how it is. Now, how productive is that? Right? So I'm at that job and all of a sudden all these feelings. So I start to say, well, how am I going to get out of that? Guess what my key was? Guess who my salvation was? Mabel. It turns out Mabel's nice. It turns out that Mabel's really good at her job. And it turns out that Mabel just wanted me to be really good at my job. Mabel knew the ins and outs of that place. Mabel knew how to be there as a young person and survive. Mabel knew how to be excellent. Mabel turns out to be my salvation. Mabel taught me how to dress. Mabel taught me how to pick out shoes, how to match colors, how to match ties. Mabel. Mabel taught me when to wear suspenders and when not to. And by the way, that whole suspender belt thing, that was out. I thought that was in. I thought, no way these pants are coming down now. I've got suspenders and I've got a belt and I feel pretty good about that. And Mabel's like, that's a bad look for you. So Mabel shows me how to pretty much do everything. Mabel becomes my confidant. Mabel, even though she's 1,000 years old, seems to get it. She seems to understand my life as a teenager. She seems to understand what I'm going through. Mabel taught me so many things at that job. And I just needed to listen. And I needed to accept the gifts that she was giving me. And then Mabel made it happen for me. She also gave me confidence because when I had to measure clothing, so she had to cut it, but I had to measure it. So I had to learn how to fit clothes and how to chalk them up and how to do custom tailoring. I had to do that. And so I had to learn how to measure and how to chalk and put that little soapy chalk on it because whatever I did, she would cut. Now if I measured it wrong, it was cut wrong, she would look bad, store would lose money, she would lose face. So actually what I was doing was a pretty important part of that. I had to learn how to speak about clothing, how to speak about suits. I didn't know anything. She taught me magazines to read, things to look at. She really really helped me out at that time in my life when I needed that confidence. So as I did a suit right, as I sold shoes correctly, as I was able to recommend things that actually fit someone's needs, and they came back and said, that's a very nice young man. What's his name? You should, that young man just helped me. He was really helpful. When the store owners started getting that, when Mabel started doing that, they would come around and go, Dave, good job. That was good. And Mabel would wink at me and she'd say, nice job. So just that little bit of acknowledgement was enough. If I would come up from the floor, every time that happened, I was closing the gap. I knew in my heart that I could be a 10. I knew in my heart that I had special gifts, special capabilities, special things to offer. I didn't know where, I didn't know what, I didn't know who, but I had to get rid of this. I had to become the person that could accept these things. I had to find out how I get my potential. Mabel helped me. Perhaps there's a Mabel in your life. But she helped me remember. Then when I didn't understand something, I started thinking, what would Mabel tell me to do? I mean, what would her advice be to do? So I started imagining, if I don't know what to do, what might Mabel do? Or what would she suggest for me to do? Now, Mabel's not telling me what to do, but guess where I'm drawing that from? I know what to do. I know what to do. I know what to say. By this time, I'm 15 or 16 years old. I know it all. That's funny to the older ones. So But you know already you have values, you have things inside of you, you understand what to do now. It's just that I didn't have the confidence to access something that, well, I must not know what to do. I actually did know what to do. Well, I must not know what to say. I actually did know what to say, and so do you. So maybe it'll help me find the places inside, the memories inside when I did something well. Even when people were telling me I didn't do anything well. Even when people were yelling at me, or even when folks are saying, you know, you're awful, or you'll never do this, or you won't amount to this, or you can't get out of this town, or you'll be working with your dad and grandpa soon. And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't want to, nothing against them, but I've got other things to do. I have other places to be. I see myself doing something else. And then they'd say, what is it? I don't know, but it's fantastic. So at that place where you don't know what it is, you've got to bridge that gap so that you can take care of your potential, so that when opportunity comes around, you're ready. When opportunity comes, you must be ready. Louis Pasteur said, chance favors the prepared mind. Be prepared. So when chance comes along, you're ready to go. You can't say, oh, now wait a minute, I haven't really worked on that, so hold that thought, I'll be back in 6 months and I'll be ready. That opportunity will be gone. It'll be gone, gone, gone. You have to get ready now. You're just at the right age because you understand what the deal is. You understand that you've been given an opportunity. You understand enough about what's going on to know that you've got to prepare yourself for greatness now. Not later, now. The habits that you do, the things that you put in front of you, the behaviors that you acquire, those will affect you now and forever, by the way. So I had to borrow confidence until I got it myself. Have you ever had to do that? Have you ever had to borrow confidence from somebody? You don't believe in yourself, but someone else does? Yeah? You have an experience with that? Yeah. Yes. 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 So that's a common thing. How can, you don't have confidence in yourself, so you have to borrow it from a teacher. Was it a teacher, a friend, a parent, somebody like that? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's how you get along, is you borrow that confidence until you can have it yourself. Do you all have Mabels in your lives? Yep. Somebody's a Mabel? Yep. Mabel and I would become friends. So Mabel and I would get together. I'd get together with her husband and her, and we'd go to church. I went to church with her. She went to a different church, and I went to that church. And then she came to my church. And then we would go to dinner with her husband and I, and they'd take me out to dinner. So Mabel and I became friends. It's like amazing, really. And my mom and dad, they'd come over to the house and they would thank Mabel for looking after me, thank Mabel and her husband for taking care of me, and thank them for really coming into a time in my life where I needed a mentor, I needed somebody like that. But I didn't even know what that looked like. I did not even know what that person looked like at that time in my life. Looking back, I realized there's this place, and she helped me a lot. Amazing, really. Mabel, eh. Yeah, I know. So you have these gaps, and I think that's one of the takeaways for you to know, is that you'll have a gap between what you think you can do and where your dreams are, right? So you got to bridge that gap. Take those experiences, borrow confidence if you don't have it. Realize that you need to pay attention to those habits to get that potential, to bring that gap closer, so that when opportunity is there, you can jump on the ball. You can make that kind of stuff happen. One of the things that I found out early on is that I thought when I went in with those kids, and by the way, I became one of those kids, because I realized that they weren't that cool, they were just confident. When I became confident, I was one of them. So when the next person came in, I saw on their face, they think they're not rich enough, they think they don't look good, they think it's just not confidence. It doesn't matter where you come from, it's just confidence. So after a while, I was the #1 salesperson in that store. Me, I was the #1. I was the #1. And it wasn't because I was connected, it wasn't because I was rich, it wasn't because my parents were X, Y, and Z. It wasn't any of that stuff. It's because I had built a confidence level. So when somebody came in, 1, I listened, 2, I was respectful, and 3, I was solving their problem. I wasn't trying to sell them something they didn't need. I was listening carefully, respecting their choice, and then finding what would really make them happy and suit their needs. Turns out that's sales. Ha, who knew? Who knew that that's sales? So then all of a sudden I became good at sales. It turns out that's a skill, my first one. My falling off a ladder. That was my really first skill. I'm really messy and I fall off a ladder. So, okay, that's my first skill. My second skill, eminently more marketable, sales. All of a sudden, I'm a salesman. I know how to do stuff. I know how to say stuff. And I become more confident. So, what do you think happens? They like me.
You got promoted?
I got promoted. I did. I got promoted above people who had been there longer. Because, as it turns out, your outcomes matter. Your performance matters. So I'm outselling, my performance is greater, I'm the new kid on the block, but I'm doing better than everybody else on the block. I get the promotion, I get the raise, because I'm not mailing it in. I'm showing up. I'm showing up. Every single day, I'm there to win. I'm there to help. I'm there to make something happen. I'm not passive about this. I'm here. Then pretty soon, guess what happens? I got a car. Yeah, that's all right. It's an old beat up Ford Torino, but that's okay. It's better than a bike. Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm driving to work. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I'm driving to work and I'm promoted and I've got more money. Yeah. Things are working out for me. Yeah. So, who knew? Sales paid, jobs work, performance counts. Oh my goodness, I guess it does. So the other thing that I realized, are you going to be okay? Are you all right? Do you need some water? Are you okay? All right. So the other thing that I figured out is that I didn't need to be perfect. None of this was based on me being perfect. I had many imperfections. Lots. I still do. Tons. There's lots of things I do not so well. I have many, as they will say, areas of improvement. You know? But I'm enthusiastic and passionate about what I am good at. And that turns out to be okay. You don't have to be good at everything. 1 or 2 things and you're good. You know? It's good. 1 or 2 things. Be good. Other areas of improvement. Hire somebody. You know? Do something else. Here's the other thing that they said I couldn't do. You can't write. I started writing when I was very young. So kindergarten, I started writing. Then by the time I was 3rd grade, I was writing stories. I had things in my head. Voices. No. Oh, no. Not voices. No, not voices. Well, maybe a couple. So I had stories to tell. I was a paper boy early on, so I became a paper boy. One of the things that people liked about me, hard to believe, is that I would deliver my papers late every day. Do you know why? I didn't actually read the paper, but the people that I delivered the paper to, I would ask, "How are you today?" And then they would answer me, and I'd have a follow-up question. So how is that? And then they would tell me their story. Those stories, it turns out, are the most fascinating things that I learned when I was 8. I had that when I was 8. So I would be on my bicycle, constantly on my bicycle, Schwinn, electric blue, with a banana seat. That was big in the 60s. Big in the 60s. Yeah, Schwinn. So I would listen to their stories, and it turns out that those stories were fascinating to me. I was very interested in their stories. So those kinds of stories, as it turns out, were the places that I would learn about others. And learning about others and understanding their stories and hearing what their needs were, that was educating me to understand people. I didn't really understand them before, but when I was in that situation, I was meeting younger people or older people, 1,000-year-old people, all kinds of other stuff, 2,000-year-old people. People that I had to go, are you still with us? And it turns out that their stories absolutely fascinated me. Those were the things that I was just soaking in. I was just soaking this stuff up. And I didn't have to be perfect, but I was a good listener because I was genuinely interested in these stories. So I would deliver the papers late. Some people just really didn't like that. You know, it's the afternoon paper, you know, like the Eagle Tribune, and you get it at 6 at night or something like that. Because Dave, it takes him 2 hours to deliver 45 papers because I just find everyone fascinating. So I'm talking to all these people. Really? And I got a whole paper bag full. But it turns out that that was an important part for me because those stories helped me understand people. Those understanding of people helped me be better in that human laboring job because I could listen, I could be respectful. I was actually genuinely interested. Being on that became me naturally curious. I wonder what this person's story is about. I know they've got a story. I wonder what it is. There's some amazing thing inside this person. I wonder what it is. So I started looking at people and knowing that everyone has an amazing story to tell. Everyone has a piece of greatness inside of them. Because everyone I'd talk to, there would be these stories and I'd be like, there it is. There's the amazing story. I knew it was in there. And I started listening to them. So it turns out that that's a key to helping others, but it's a key to pretty much every other job that you'll have for the rest of your life. When you are in service to others, when you add value to others, you first listen, you have respect, and you understand their story. You understand what they want of you. And then when you deliver that, that turns out to be the key to success for pretty much every job in existence. So I didn't know that. I was just talking. I just thought it was interesting. Then when I was at Human Rayburn, I realized, oh, that's important in a job. Oh. So I didn't know. I was not as smart as you. There's no way I was as smart as you. I'm telling you that. I doubt if I am now. I've just been around longer. It's true. But I realized that those imperfections, even with all those imperfections, I had a couple things that I did well. I was unique in myself. So are you. I was unique. So I didn't do everything right. All right, well, so, it's okay. They told me I couldn't spell, remember? 3rd grade, I wrote a story. Each teacher along the way, I had one teacher that almost destroyed everything for me. I know, because what she saw was spelling. For some reason, and we didn't have a school system that would understand this from an educational point of view, I can't spell. I can't spell today. I'll look at a word, I think it's right, and it's not. I can't spell. Still today. It's actually an issue, but I have to overcome it. And I never could spell. So when I was in kindergarten, I had the stories. When I was in 3rd grade, my mother just sent me some stuff, by the way, that was mimeographed. You don't even know what that is, but mimeographed. And it's my 3rd grade stories that I wrote out, or she wrote out, or somebody wrote out, because the spelling's right, so it couldn't have been me. But then when I started going into 5th grade, it looked like a small animal was sacrificed on my paper. There was so much red. You couldn't see the words anymore. There was just like, who died on my paper? Who was killed on my paper? And there was just red, so every time I got a paperback, I started not wanting to see it because it was like from my heart, and then it looked like I bled out on this paper. So I wasn't encouraged, and I stopped writing. So writing was really a way that I could express these stories. I thought that stories were really our way to kind of tell what's inside of us. I saw that the stories were a way to do that. But when I got all this back, I thought, wow, and then there was nothing about the writing. It was just, this is spelled wrong. And it's like, well, how about the story? Nothing. So then I thought, well, maybe spelling matters more than the story. Well, all right. And I was like, so Mrs. Pearson helped me out. Mrs. Pearson said the story is more important than the spelling. You can learn how to spell or hire somebody. She told me that, 6th grade. 6th grade. Mrs. Pearson said, "What's the story about, David?" And I tell her the story. She goes, "Great. Write it down." And then I would write it down, and she'd say, "Okay, this is spelled this way. You need to learn to use a dictionary. You obviously can't spell, but that's okay. Use a dictionary." I said, "All right, I can't spell," but she said, "The story is fantastic." I was like, "Really?" She says, "The story is fantastic. It's a fantastic story, a meaningful story." And then I was like, "Yeah." Yeah. So then the story now is more important than the spelling. I can't spell, but she doesn't care. So I'll do my best and go from there. So it turns out that the story is more important, because as I went through college, there were no computers. I did everything on a little typewriter. So I had to hire somebody to proof my papers. Well, that helped them. So I had to work. Remember, I'm putting myself through college. Now I have an employee. Actually, a contract worker. So I'm hiring somebody to proof this paper because I can't trust myself. But I know that. So I'm good with that. So all of a sudden, the story and how I'm telling is more important than the paper. I can hire somebody who knows how to spell. Good for them, good for me. Done. Later on, spell check. I'm like, "Thank you." Oh, thank you. Oh, I feel the power. So spell check comes in there, and I'm like, great, fantastic. So all of a sudden, I'm writing again, and I'm producing content, and it turns out that's important. Content's important. So fast forward now, I've published 9 books now, and 150 peer review articles, probably another 1,000 or 2,000 articles that I've written, and I co-write for 2 blogs. I have 2 books coming out next year. Yeah. I'm a writer. And I can't spell for nothing. Let me tell you, I can't spell for nothing. But I'm a writer. Anyway, so I got flaws, I got cracks, and I'm doing it anyway. I just found out what those are, and I'm doing it anyway. Because as it turns out, the story is more important than the spelling. Yeah. So the way you feel about yourself, think about it and go forward a little bit. The stuff that you find is important and the thing that keeps you down, I would just challenge you to say, "I think it's not that important. I thought I wasn't this and it wasn't that, and it turns out that's not important. What I was enough. My authentic self is enough." The algorithms that Google is doing now, they're not trying to put you in a box. They're trying to find out what's your box. They want to know, because what they're doing is they're saying, "You don't need to be anything. We want to know who you are. We want to make choices based on who you are, authentically, genuinely." That's what Google's doing. They have more money than anybody, and they're choosing to do that. So they don't want you to be somebody else. They're trying to find out who you are. That's the trend. That's the new trend. Google's going to make it happen. Because they say that who you are is fine. What you are is fine. Take your authentic and genuine gifts and work on those. Get your potential from who you really are. And that's fine. I'll show you something. This is potter's clay. Potter's clay. Right? It's potter's clay. I wrapped it up here so that your hands wouldn't get nasty, but you can feel it, right? You can squish it, right? This is potter. Take it, pass it around. Potter's clay can be anything, right? It has potential, right? It has anything. You can make that clay anything that your mind can imagine, right? It can be anything. Anything. Potter's clay. It can be anything you want. What will it be in your mind? You're limited by your potential. If you think a pot, then it becomes a pot. But if you think a vase, if you think a statue, if you think anything, it will become that, because that's what's in your mind, that's what's in your heart. You have a passion to do that. That's what it becomes. Not too much of an analogy from you. You are potential. You are clay, right? Yeah. At least you've used it possibly as a hair product or something like that. I don't know what's in hair product. I have limited options in that area now. That's one of the things that's changing. But I learned I am not limited by my hair or lack of. So I realize that. I am not my hair. I had to go through that. All men of a certain age do. So this clay, and I can take this to the folks on this side. See, you guys are mushing it. That's really great. That's perfect. So this clay can be anything you want it to be. What will it be? There is a kind of pottery technique, a Japanese pottery technique. Have you ever heard of that? It's raku. Do you know raku? You ever heard that word before? It's a new word. It's a new vocabulary word. Raku. R-A-K-U is the English version. Raku. 4 words. 4-letter words. See where you went with that? So raku, it turns out, is special. This is why I like raku. Raku is the only pottery that's placed directly in the fire. In the fire. Other kilns, they have fire around it. Raku, in the fire it goes. Right directly in the flames of the fire. Do you know why that's so cool? Because every fire is different. It's a wood fire. Every fire is different, so that means every raku is different. Every piece of raku is unique to its fire, to the artist's object, and also to that moment in time. You can never recreate it again. So a Japanese executive from Honda once told me, when he was talking about me, by the way, that a raku artist is unique in all of Japan because they seek to balance between imperfections and possibilities. So that raku pottery is a reflection of these two things that coexist in our lives. We have imperfections. I do. Lots. But I also have possibilities. I also have potential. I also have passion. These things come together in a piece of raku. So they're not designed to make it look perfect. In fact, they want it to look the way it looks, because the way it looks is fine. It's authentic to that moment. It's authentic to that fire. It's authentic to the artist's vision. And it combines those two elements. So let me show you a couple things. Raku and you. So raku, as it turns out, there's all kinds of cracks in here. And the fire determines these little marks. These little smudges on here are where the fire actually touched it and licked it and whoosh, right across there. The color is the fire touching it. So we all go through fire. The only way that you can test your talents is to go through the fire. You're going through the fire. Man, I was a teenager. That's a fire. Let me tell you, that's a fire. So you walk through that fire and your talents are tested. Now you can trust them. Oh, that's a bunch of T's in a row. Yes. Important message. All right. So let me pass this around. Let's start over here. Send it all the way back. That's raku. Look inside. It has cracks. They don't try to hide it. They don't try to smooth it out. It's supposed to be there. Right? Here's another piece. Looks completely different, right? Doesn't look anything like that. Well, this artist imagined something different than that artist. This flame was different than that flame. That's why it looks like that. There you go. Try that. Somebody imagined that. Well, that's okay. They love it. Right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The finish is completely different. There you go. Piece of raku. The fire touched this differently. So it became a different piece. Different color. The artist imagined a different shape. So it is that shape. Right? It has all these bumps and ridges in it like this, right? It's not smooth. It's not supposed to be. And it's imperfect. So. And if you look on the bottom, each raku piece on the very bottom is an unfinished piece. So it lets you know before all the glaze, it's still unfinished. Like us, we are not finished yet. We are a work in progress. We are a piece of art in progress. You, me, everybody. Here you go, pass that around. Here's another one. It's a cup or something. You know, whatever it is. The artist imagined that, well, look at all the cracks on this. This thing is just filled with cracks. And they didn't try to cover it up. They didn't try to paint it over. These cracks are what make it beautiful. These cracks are what make it unique. It's elegant in its own way. It's unique to its own self. The fire touched this in a different way, gave it different impressions. There you go. Pass that around. So the idea here is that we are all a piece of work. You know? Piece of work. We all have different things. We are balancing constantly our potential. Now, how do you change your potential? You do exactly what we talked about earlier. You make sure that every day you work on your choices. Every day you work on your behavior. Because as John Maxwell says, leaders are not made in a day, they're made daily. They're made daily. It's your daily choices. You know, what's going to happen today? What you decide today could affect the rest of your life. Who knows that the person that recommended me for this job at Human Rayburn saw me on a good day? Must have, right? They recommended for your job. What if they saw me on a bad day? Right? What if they saw me on a day where I was acting out, a day where I was having trouble, a day that I chose to do different behaviors that would not make me look like somebody you'd want to hire? I could have lost that job, right? They wouldn't have hired me because they'd look at that and go, you know, I heard good things about him, but that might just not be true. Now, of course, we know that we're made up of both, good days and bad days. And that's just life, right? We're made up of those. If you just trust your five senses, you're working on your thinking part of the mind. That's the stuff that you can see. It has nothing to do with your potential. Your potential has to do with what's going on inside of here. Your potential has to be achieved by making conscious choices, not reactive, conscious. Something happens, you decide, you make a choice. Choice is about awareness. Choice is about awareness. So you're getting all this awareness so that you can understand better choices. Making those better choices are going to help you every single day so that you can become a work of art, so that you can be the person that you feel inside, so that you can say, I believe I could be this, and I'm here, but I'm going to make that, I'm going to narrow that gap. I'm going to listen, I'm going to find a Mabel, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to listen, I'm going to be respectful, I'm going to take charge of my personal choices, I'm going to straighten out my behavior, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up every single day. I'm going to make it count. Because you never know who's going to be there that day. And also you don't want to get in a habit of messing up. Because you can do it. I've done it. It just turns out that that's not productive. It doesn't work. And you will not raise your self-esteem. I found that out the hard way a bunch of times. So you can make conscious choices to do it differently. This part that's in here, you grow it. You grow your potential. That's what you can do. You can make that. Each one of these pieces of raku that's coming out, you can be that. You're a piece of art. You're so unique. You have so much potential, each one of you. And I think that you straighten out the things that you want to do, you make conscious choices, and every single day you check in on how am I doing on my potential? Am I doing the behaviors that are necessary in order for me to create good habits that will actually lend itself to performance in my life, and I can achieve my goals and I can achieve my dreams. It's your job. Nobody else is going to do it. Trust me. It's your job. You have to do it. You've been provided an excellent foundation here, but it's you that steps up and you that make the choices. I want to thank you today for bringing me here to this school. This is wonderful. Notre Dame High School has really touched my heart with what your mission here is and what you're doing. I see the potential in you. I'm honored to be speaking in front of you. I really see a lot of amazing pieces of raku out there. So I thank you for your time and attention, and I appreciate your work here. Thank you so much.
Come back and like us more?
I would be honored. I would be honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred.